Why can't you rent a car until age 25? You can drive at 16. So why can't you rent a car without an additional fee at age 25? The question really comes down to, what do rental car companies know that the rest of us don't think about? The true story is you can actually rent a car at age 21, but there is a special fee that's added on top of your rental fee, and that fee is to do a thing. And so there's some interesting research that J.D. Powers has shared, and what it is that the incidence of decision-making that might lead to risk, which is where they decide on fees and insurance and things like that, that's going to tell them that at age 25, the graph of whether there is high or low risk starts to drop off. And what it comes down to is the whole set of executive function skills for all of us. That at age 25, most of us have solidified our executive function skills. But at age 16, we have not. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have 16-year-olds who are real slick and put together and they can just do all the things. And it doesn't mean that every 25-year-old is capable of adulting. But we also have to start thinking about scaffolding, because if we don't remember what every rental car company already knows, then as educators, there are things that we know but we're not thinking about. To explore this executive function scaffolding approach, we're going to have to take a look at the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. So we're going to take a look at just one part. In the UDL Guidelines 2.0, in the lower right-hand corner, we have three specific guidelines that this school has been focusing on. So first, I'm going to direct your attention to Guideline 6, which is provide options for executive function. One of the things that we know about our middle grades learners are early adolescence and our middle adolescence. So we're really talking about grades 5 through 9 here. We're talking about how to build expert learners who are strategic and goal-directed, we have to scaffold and provide options for executive function. So by scaffolding, what I mean is we have to make sure that we're not just expecting students to be able to do a thing. The rental car companies do not think that folks can do something between 16 and 20. They actually do not trust that they're going to do something right between 21 and 24. And so it's not until 25 that they feel like the risk has been reduced based on the data that they have, and that we can reliably expect folks to have good decision making. So let's take a look at Guideline 6. That would be appropriate goal setting, planning, and strategy development. Facilitate managing information and resources. So that means taking in everything that's around you and then using the things that you have at your disposal. Determining your own progress would be 6.4. We know from the rental car example that we've got really good research that says, we've got really good data that says that rental car companies know that human beings are not reliable to make good decisions about a vehicle and getting where they're going, making good decisions about getting there, and having everything arrive safely until they're 25. That is an eye-opener for us. In the lower right-hand corner of the UDL Guidelines 2.0, we had something called the cautious corner. One of them is definitely Guideline 6, but I also want you to jump up to Guideline 8 in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's sustaining effort and persistence. So in that same age band between 5th and 9th grade, the ability of folks to see the goals and objectives and that they are important right now, they're the things that are going to get me where I'm going, being able to work with others and being able to take in information and do something with it to reach mastery. That was a tough area for our early adolescents and middle adolescents. And then when we take a look at Guideline 9, provide options for self-regulation, most middle schoolers can't do that. They're learning how, they're on the path. It's one of the reasons we have middle schools. And then in high school, same thing. We're still building that. But many adults we know have difficulty figuring out whether or not they can get started in the morning. And do I even want to do this? Figuring out their own coping skills and strategies. Many adults struggle with self-assessment and reflection. So we know that that's a lifelong skill. So when we think about the lifespan, 6, 8, and 9, we have to be cautious. The cautious corner. We have to be cautious in saying, well, Kids already know how to do this. Students already know how to do this. Once I've told them once, they should be fine. So when we're looking at strategic and goal-directed learners, when we're looking at purposeful, motivated learners, from the lifespan perspective, what the UDL guidelines help us say is the cautious corner. When you look at the UDL Guidelines 2.0, the cautious corner is warning us of these are things that are in progress, that they're things that are developing. The rental car companies would tell us that there's no reason you should expect anyone to master these until age 25, and that somewhere between 21 and 25, it's probably okay to say, hey, it's a risk, but let's do this. But before age 21, it's not even in the ballpark. And so one of the things that we should think about is not avoiding it, because this is where we're developing our skills with our young people. This is where neural connections are being made. But we have to remember to do what's in Guideline 5, and it's specifically in Checkpoint 5.3, which is we need to practice building fluency with our young people with graduated release of responsibility, gradual release of responsibility. And we need to make sure that they have more practice in doing this. We have to walk a line on that in schools. We don't necessarily focus a lot on these skills. It's real easy to say in our schools that we're going to have a learning target on the content, on our standards, and then we'll just expect students to do the thing. We're going to expect them to set goals and self-regulate. We're going to expect them to hang in there and remember how to do this. And we're going to focus on the content. And we know it's not true. The rental car companies should not be able to remember things more easily than us. And so we need to start thinking about how do we remind ourselves about what we already know. And so that's going to be the goal of today. So we're going to jump into our most important concept, which is the foundation of all of this, which is working memory. Today's most important concept is in front of you right now. It's a sticky note, and it represents your working memory. So I want you to picture yourself in an office supply store or any big box store, and you are in the sticky note aisle. You know what I'm talking about. So you're looking at the racks of sticky notes. What are all the sizes of sticky notes? There's tiny ones, right? Little tape flags. Then there's the ubiquitous yellow one that you're looking at right now. But there's also cute ones that have bears on them, and they're in different shapes, like shoes. And then we've got giant ones that are half a sheet of paper and have lines on them. And we have some that are the size of chart paper. The most important concept for today is that your working memory is represented by a sticky note. Now, I don't know which sticky note represents yours, so I need you to help me on that. Do you have a working memory of someone says, hey, here's my phone number, and you write it on your hand, or you remember it a day later and you still are hanging on to that phone number? It's stuck with you. Do you have that cute little bear one where there's a space to write something, but it's very tiny, so you're just going to have a little in there? Are you the person who walks down the hallway and somebody stops you and says, oh, here's this thing, and you say, that's a great idea. Can you email that to me? Can you send me a message? Are you the person who stops and sends yourself a message about it? Do you have a little diary book that you carry around with you everywhere because you just jot down the things that are going on all the time throughout the day because you know you're going to have to go back to it? So here's something to think about. Your working memory is set when you are a child. It doesn't get bigger. And I know we think, well, I remember a lot more for short periods of time now that I'm an adult than I did as a student, that I did as a child. But here's the thing. You're not actually changing the size of your working memory. What you're thinking about right now is the strategies that you have for handling your working memory. I'm going to give you some examples. When you were 7, if you were in the yard and a family member told you to go inside, get something from the refrigerator, get something off the kitchen table, and come back outside, if you were able to do that right away, you can still do that. But if you were the child at 7 who went inside, went to the refrigerator, then realized there were popsicles in the freezer, heard the TV in the other room, and realized you could go join your sister and watching TV, and you never made it back outside, you're probably still that adult. However, what you have is a set of coping strategies that you've developed over time. When you're looking at this picture of all the different sticky notes, that's all the working memories of the people around you. So you might be the bear in the middle, or you might be the little pink one on the side. But what you are is you are exactly the working memory that you've already had. but you also have these other coping strategies. You've got these other executive function skills that have built up around your working memory because you've learned from your experiences. That's your learner expertise. And so the premise for today is your working memory can only hold so much. What I want you to think about right now is when we have a student in school, how much are we asking their working memories to hold? So picture yourself in a classroom. I might be walking in as a 15-year-old or a 12-year-old. I have to follow directions for anywhere between 50 and 85 minutes. So what we want to think about is how much of that has to be held in working memory and how much of that is scaffolded by the environment. If you are the person who, when you're walking in the hall and someone talks to you, you say, hey, can you send me that message? Or you write one to yourself, or you write it on your hand, or you have a clipboard you're walking around with, or a diary, or just an index card. And so those coping skills and strategies, our students don't have those. They walk into class and their working memories can get overloaded very quickly. And that can be the hidden difficulty for many of our students. I want you to think about working memory as the thing that has to be scaffolded more than anything else. We don't think enough about whether or not the cognitive load of the experiences our middle-level students are having is too much. We care about why scaffolding working memory increases student motivation, and the easiest way for us to approach this question is to ask the reverse. So why does not scaffolding my working memory decrease my motivation? I want you to think about a 13-year-old student walking into an 8th grade classroom. They walk in, there's a set of expectations that are spoken to the student on the way in. They are looking around the room and there's a variety of things going on, which could be a sign of a healthy classroom. At minimum, there are 3 steps that they're being asked to do. If there are no directions on the board, if there's no routine or procedure in place, if things change up all the time because things are novel and interesting and fun, and this teacher is super engaging and finds things on Teachers Pay Teachers and always has a new activity each day, how might the lack of scaffolds for what's going on in their working memory decrease their motivation to engage? And what many of us will land on is the amount of cognitive effort that needs to go into being successful in this room right now is more than the average 13-year-old particularly wants to give, which is exactly what a rental car company would tell you. And so what we need to do is ask ourselves, why does not scaffolding your working memory actually decrease your motivation to engage in the right behaviors?